A quorum of the committee is present. Meeting is now declared open. It is 10 a.m. First order of business is approval of minutes. Are there any amendments or objections to the proposed minutes as presented? Hearing none, the minutes as presented on the agenda will stand approved. We're going to head to our agenda now. I think we have a couple of items. Mr. Lumpkin, I believe you're next, correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Chairman O'Daniel, Mr. Collier, members. Today, we have 4 items on the agenda. During the regular session of the Texas Board of Criminal Justice meeting, we will recommend that the board approve all 4. I would also like to point out that all 4 easements today include language requiring indemnification as the grantee's responsibility, the most favored nation clause, and additional insurance in the amount of at least $2 million. The first easement request is for a gas pipeline easement at the Clemens unit in Brazoria County. Praxair is requesting an easement to include an area of approximately 8.19 acres of land, being 11,903.36 feet long by 30 feet wide for 1 hydrogen gas pipeline. This request also includes temporary workspace totaling 14.74 acres for use during pipeline construction and installation. What you see there is a map of the Clemens unit in Brazoria County. It sits on 8,000 acres of land. The black tag is the unit itself. And if whoever's controlling the toggle, if we can toggle back to the other red tag, that tag there, this is the easement we're talking about right now, is the proposed gas pipeline easement that would run southwest of the unit. Praxair has agreed to pay $551,383 for this easement with a 10-year term. I'm available for any questions.
Mr. Lumpkin, this is well, I guess you can see me since this is our first Zoom meeting. It kind of takes away from being in person, but we'll muddle through it. We're very familiar with our natural gas pipelines and what the market rate is for those types of easements. Is this similar in the market rate?
This was actually scheduled for the April board meeting, and this was already negotiated before the board meeting. And since it was negotiated and settled with Praxair, I guess you could call this rod amount $750 a rod, pre-COVID negotiated. We did not go back to the table, so you will see in an easement coming up a post-COVID negotiated rate.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions about that easement? All right, Mr. Lumpkin, I think you're next.
Yes, sir. The second item is a request for an electrical transmission easement, also at the Clemens unit in Brazoria County. CenterPoint Energy Houston Electric is requesting an easement which includes an area of 35.18 acres of land, being 15,132.36 feet long by a variable width for a new electrical transmission line. You see here again, we have the Clemens unit, the red tag now, that runs the corridor of State Highway 36, which crosses southwest of the unit. CenterPoint has agreed to pay $193,851 for this easement with a 30-year term. I'm available for any questions.
Okay, hearing none, I think you're up on the next one.
Third item is a request for a pipeline easement at the Stiles unit in Jefferson County. Zydeco Pipeline Company is requesting the renewal of a pipeline easement, which includes an area of approximately 3.91 acres of land, being 5,679.96 feet long by 30 feet wide. Will you please direct your attention to your screen? Stiles unit, as you see, is co-located with the GIST unit and the LeBlanc unit in Jefferson County. FM 3514 splits the Stiles unit from the GIST unit LeBlanc, and that's your red line that runs the length east to west running alongside FM 3514. Zydeco Pipeline Company has agreed to pay $172,120 for this easement with a 10-year term. I'm available for any questions.
Maybe asking the obvious, but this easement also has those favored nations provisions and the indemnities and the insurance provisions, correct?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
And this is the one that's the post-COVID negotiated one?
Yes, that's correct, Chairman. In February, we took one to the board that was for Jefferson County, was $1,000 a rod. First time we had garnered that in the history of negotiation of pipelines. This one post-COVID, we ended up at $500 a rod. Their first proposal was around 300. We negotiated up to 500.
Thank you.
Okay, is Mr. Lumpkin, do you have one other one?
Yes, one last one. The last item is a request for renewal of an access and surface lease. The city of Houston is requesting the renewal of said lease at the Houston Regional Pro Office, which includes an area of 431 square feet of land that serves as an access to the city of Houston's communication tower. This lease was first approved by the board in May 2010. On the screen, this Pro office in Houston sits at Highway 290 in Loop 610. As you see, there's the tower and there's our office building adjacent to it, and the parking lot is the access to the tower for the city of Houston. They have agreed to pay an annual rent of $741.60 with an escalation of 3% each 5-year period throughout a lease of 20 years. I'm available for any questions.
Mr. Lumpkin, how does this fare with the prior lease term? Or excuse me, the lease rate?
The initial lease rate was $720 with a 10-year term annually, and did not appear to have the escalators built into it. Therefore, the escalator we have built in on this renewal.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Lumpkin, thank you very much. Anyone else? Any other questions?
Thank you.
Done. We have our projects coming up. Who's? Mr. Steffa, are you coming up?
I think it's Mr. Ginzel.
Oh, yes. Hello, hello.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. How are you?
Good, sir.
Okay, where are we?
Doing our facilities project report.
Yes, sir.
All right, good morning, Mr. Chairman, Chairman O'Daniel, Mr. Collier, members. I'd like to provide you an update of the status of board approved projects. The updated status report should be available on your screen and in your board packet. We'll start with item number one. Item number one is the Jester 4 unit roofing project. This is the first replacement of the Jester 4 roof since the unit was built in 1993. The project is currently at 75% complete. Item number two is a pallet unit roofing project. This is the first replacement of the pallet unit roof since the unit was built in 1982. This project is currently at 51% complete. Item number three is for the Hughes unit design only for roof replacement. This design is currently at 11% complete. Item number four is a Cofield unit roofing project. This replacement of the main roofing section of the Cofield unit was last replaced in 1999. The project is currently at 1% complete. Item number five is the Maqua unit roofing project. This is the first replacement of the Maqua unit roof since the unit was built in 1987. The project is currently at 1% complete. Item number six is a Young roofing project. This is the first replacement of the Young roof since the unit was built in 1996. The project is currently at 1% complete. The next two items, number 7 and 8, are to replace plumbing controls and fixtures at the Ellis and Estelle units. These are the intelligent conservation, or what we call the ICON projects. These two projects are being completed by the Facilities Division in-house maintenance. Both projects are currently at 53% complete. We could change the slide. Item number 9 is the Bird Unit project to replace the locking system in A and C cell blocks. This project is currently at 42% complete. Item number 10 is the Lindsay Unit project to replace the locking system. This project is currently at 1% complete. Item number 11 is the PAC Unit project to install air conditioning. Air conditioning has been installed in all living areas and was fully functionable as of April 1st, 2020. The remainder of the project is to upgrade the electrical system. The project is currently at 95% complete. Item number 12 is a Hodge Unit project to install air conditioning. This project is pending notice to proceed. A pre-construction meeting has been scheduled for June 30th, 2020, after which the notice to proceed will be issued. Item number 13 is the Terrell Unit project to resurface the perimeter road. This project is now complete. Item number 14 is a Scott Unit project to replace gas and water distribution systems. This project is now complete. Item number 15 is the Mountain View project to replace a water distribution system and lines. The project is currently at 93% complete. Item number 16 is the Mountain View project to replace a groundwater storage tank. This project is currently at 94% complete. We change the slide. Item number 17 is the Ferguson Unit design only for the replacement of the water treatment plant. The design is currently at 12% complete. Item number 18 is the Wind Unit project to replace a primary electrical distribution system. This project is currently at 23% complete. And lastly, item number 19 is a Ferguson Unit project to install high mast lighting. This project is now complete. That concludes my project status update. I'll stand by for any questions you may have.
So we did a good job of not interrupting you during your presentation. Then if there are any questions from the board members as to any of these projects, I thought it'd be best, instead of interrupting one by one as you went through, to kind of wait till the end. So if there are any questions. Okay. Okay. Hearing none. Thank you so much for your report. Appreciate it. I'm glad things are moving along. And no real surprises there to be concerned of that I could see. Agreed? Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. I understand we're going to be informed a little bit about technology.
Yes, sir, we are.
Okay. Okay, and who do we have presenting?
This is Melvin Neely. I'm the Chief Information Officer for the.
Yes, sir. Well, proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Chairman O'Daniel, members of the board, Mr. Collier. Thanks for giving me this opportunity to talk to you today about something I'm very passionate about, which is the Corrections Information Technology System that we refer to as CITS. Probably you've heard about this for a while, and you probably ask yourself, why is CITS so important? Our people do a great job of managing the offenders, but the system that we have this year actually turned 42 years old. If you think back 40 years ago, Jimmy Carter was president. Gas was 63 cents a gallon. Anybody want to guess what the #1 movie was? Grease was the #1 movie. And we had 22,500 offenders in TDCJ. I think we've got about 5 times that many now. As I said, the current system's over 40 years old, and with an old system like this becomes maintenance issues. It cost us about $450,000 per month to run our antiquated COBOL system because we're charged based on CPU utilization. CPU is the number of hours that you actually crank on the mainframe. So it's about $450,000 a month. Our COBOL programmers, we have 23 COBOL programmers. They're baby boomers. 17 of them can retire within 1 to 3 years. 4 of them have less than 3 years of experience. So the option is either if you continue to support COBOL, you're going to probably have to do it through contract programmers that make between $150 and $180 an hour. It's not sustainable. One of the other issues with COBOL is COBOL or the mainframe and the current system that we have is very secure. The problem is if you don't have anybody to support it, you're not going to keep it secure. We keep it secure today, but as the COBOL programmers that I mentioned retire, you're not going to keep this system secure. It's just not possible. So you have to go to a system that is much more current. Next slide, please. So what do we get with SITS? One is over the years, offender management has become a big market. 10, 15 years ago when we looked at this, there wasn't a lot of people in this space. And now there are. There's a lot of people or a lot of companies out there that do this. The systems are great. They've got built-in business intelligence. I think the great thing about this is not only will this new system that Mr. Steff is going to go over with you later on and identify who we're recommending be selected, not only does it replace the COBOL, but it also replaces a lot of legacy applications and access databases that we struggle with. When you have a system that's 42 years old and the technology changes over the years, you create other things to help stand it up. And over the years, we've created legacy applications, access databases, and we have to deal with those on an everyday basis. One of the great things too is the built-in intelligence tools that it has. It makes it so much easier for the business owners and business decision makers to make decisions based on analytics. You can do different kinds of scenarios to find out what may happen in the future, and we're excited about that. One of the other great things about this system is it's cloud-based. What we have now is we have an offender management system that is kind of 2 parts. It's part of it, the main part of it's on the mainframe, but the other part's on about 20 servers that are located across the state of Texas. And when you have 20 servers, guess how many fail points you have? 20. Any one of them goes down, the system goes down. When you're in a cloud-based, the great thing about being in a cloud is that these cloud providers such as Google, AWS, Azure, Microsoft Azure, if the cloud goes down, they automatically fail over to a backup cloud. And that's exciting. And that kind of walks into disaster recovery. We do every April, we do a disaster recovery test. And what we have now is we have 20 servers that part of our offender management system runs on. We have a spare mainframe that's located in Austin. And every April, we fell over to that just to test it. In the new world, being cloud-based, it would just automatically fell over. And that's exciting. Every once in a while, it doesn't happen often, as much as it used to, but our system does go down. So I think this will put us in a much better situation. Next slide, please. One of the things that we did early on with any project, as you all know, we identified risk associated with the project. The number one risk that we identified is staff's willingness to accept change. We kind of hear all the time, and I know you hear it as well, that's the way we've always done it. And it's just, it's natural. I've said it myself before. And I'm going to talk a little bit later about change management, what we've done, but it's very important that staff, leadership, and so far the support has been great, are willing to accept this change. There's so many things, we're in the corrections business, we're in the public safety business. We don't want to accidentally release someone. We don't want to make a mistake. And I understand the fear. We're doing everything we possibly can to relieve that fear. So we're working a lot along the change management, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. The other thing is the scope creep. Scope creep is simply you plan on doing one thing, and for whatever reason, the project gets bigger, gets costlier, gets more timely, or requires more time. So we have to be concerned about the scope creep. If the scope creeps too much, the project starts missing dates, start running out of money. And again, a little bit later on, I'll talk about the steering committee and how we plan on controlling that. Another risk that we identified is the data migration. Right now, we have two types of data. We have data that resides on the mainframe, which we refer to as DB2 data. We have data that resides on a distributed or server, which is SQL Server. We have a lot of data, terabytes and terabytes. We're going to take all that data and we're going to convert it to SQL Server. And that's going to be a huge challenge, and there's plenty of room for error. So we've started working actually almost 2 years ago on a plan to migrate that data. That will be a challenge. We also want to look at data retention. I think some of the data we may be keeping too long. We don't want to get rid of it, but maybe put it on a storage media that it may take you 48 hours to get it instead of having instantaneous recovery. One of the other risks that we looked at was just some of the complex processes that we have. Most of the offender management piece is pretty simple or similar from state to state. But when you get into things like time calculation, every legislature for each state sets different time calculation rules. So there's no vendor out there that we found that can just come in and say, here's the time calc rules. Ours are different. If you were sentenced in 1980 versus 2000 and you were sentenced for the exact same crime, your calculation's probably different. And so we have to make sure we get this right. And we focused with the vendors, spent a lot of time with the vendors talking about, we've got to get time calculation right. And so that's one of the other areas that we identified as a risk. And the last one is people get busy. Lack of subject matter experts. Again, we've had excellent support from our executive leadership, our division directors, everyone with their involvement in this project up to this date. And we just want to make sure that people stay involved. As projects go on and people get back to their day-to-day life, sometimes they wander away from the project, and we want to keep them involved. That's the only way we're going to be successful. Next slide, please. Just a little bit about where we're at. I just want to mention that we started this project, I guess it was in the spring of 2018. Mr. Collier asked me to put together a plan to go to the legislature for the LAR to request the funding. So we started going to work in 2018. And once we put that business case together, we started formulating our teams. We've done about 2 years worth of work, getting all the business processes together. And what that's culminated into is we released a request for offer. We had 5 vendor responses. We created a technical team, which was led by the ITD division deputy director. They reviewed all those proposals. Out of those proposals, they selected 4 to negotiate with. They have selected 1. And that's why we're here today. We're going to ask, or Mr. Steffer is going to ask for your approval. And we hope that on the 1st of August, if you approve, we will be able to go to work. Next slide. How are we going to do this? First of all, I want to give so much thanks to our team and the agency's team. In 2018, we started putting together our team. We put together a project management office that focused specifically on this project. We brought in business analysts, hired business analysts. We increased our project management team. We brought in a person who had a lot of project management experience, both in the military and the private sector, to run the project. And for the last 2 years, we've been meeting with customers. We've walked units, we've watched count. We've sit with people for days and watched their job process. And we've actually documented every one of these business processes. Not only documented them in wording, but also documented them in flow charts. And we are prepared on 1 August to hand those processes over to the vendor. Did we miss something? Probably. We probably did. But I feel really good about where we're at. We're ready. One of the other things that we did was we created a steering committee. Our steering committee is chaired by our Chief of Staff, Jason Clark. The members of that steering committee are division directors and others. And the purpose of the steering committee is to make those decisions based on time, scope, and money. One of the things that I've always said is I don't want this to become an IT project. If it becomes an IT project, it's going to fail. Simple as that. It has to remain an agency project. The steering committee, if there's issues that somebody says, I got to have this, it shouldn't be an IT decision. It should be a steering committee decision on behalf of the agency that makes that decision. If it's going to extend the project, if it's going to extend the budget. So we're excited about that. And I think we've been meeting, I want to say probably 4 to 6 months. We actually have a meeting on Tuesday. So great steering committee. We also created a change management team. As you saw earlier, I identified change management as the #1 risk. I knew to be able to deal with that, I needed to have a change management team. Some of the things that we've done, we probably went out and gave 125 to 150 presentations throughout the agency. We talked to the Board of Pardons and Paroles. We put together some talking points, and we went out, talked to regional meetings for CID that have 100 people in them, to talking to 2 or 3 people. We're in the process of creating a turnout video. One of the problems that we have, and we realized, was reaching those COs, correctional staff, who don't have access to technology. You know, all of us come in every morning, we have email, we have whatever we need, and you know, they come in and they don't have all that. So we're putting together a turnout video that they'll be able to see, that kind of explains the project, lets them know that they're going to be getting some technology, but we want to make sure that we keep them up to date on what's going on. And finally, we'll have a change control board. Change control board will be when the steering committee, if they have to vote on a decision, and some things don't have to go to the steering committee. It could be something simple, but we'll have a change control board that looks at all changes to the project. The contracts and procurements will be on that board, since they manage the contract, as well as ITD and some of the division staff. And we'll approve or deny and document all changes to the project. So we're excited about that. Last slide. And just real quick, the phases, we hope to start with your approval on August 1st of this year. The first phase, we kind of have 2 phases. The first phase will be really the mainframe, focused on getting off the mainframe, and that's everything that has to do with the incarceration of the offender, intake, time calc, disciplinary, movement, you name it. And that phase will run through August 31st of 2022. We hope at that time that we'll go back to the legislature, ask for some additional funding that'll kick us into phase 2. Phase 2 will then be the Board of Pardons and Paroles releasing, that includes the voting, revocation, discharge. We are prepared if something would happen that funding wouldn't be there. We're working on a plan to use what we have and do it in-house. So I think we'll be all right there. With that ends my presentation. I'll take questions if there are any.
Mr. Neely, thank you for an excellent presentation on a subject matter that is not the easiest for those that are less technical. I will say that we'll just say a few years ago, when I was in school, there was this cutting edge programming called COBOL. So if you need some backup, feel free to call on me. I still have it. Okay.
We may do
Um,
that, sir, because we need it.
Perfect. Perfect. So I just want to make a couple of comments. First is balancing the long range need of the agency and while being good stewards of our state dollars. It's apparent that you and your team have done a very good job of looking at both of those things and making sure that you have the right result. And anyways, appreciative of all the work and effort that you and your team have done. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Sir.
I don't have any other questions other than stay on those integrators or those third parties, because they're going to want to go past August of 2022.
Yes, sir.
It's just human nature.
Yes, sir.
Anybody else?
I just want to second Mr. De Ayala's remarks. Mr. Neely, we are very excited about this program and your leadership to this point and shepherding this through. As you pointed out, it is 42 years in the making. And this is by far the most important IT project in not one, but 2 generations. So I just want to thank you and your team for all their hard work. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It's been an agency effort, I will tell you.
Any other questions?
I just have a question real quick for Mr. Neely. Consistent with what Mr. De Ayala said and the chair said, can you give us an idea of the last system, such as it is, lasted 42 years? Do we have an estimate as to how long this new system will serve the agency well?
Well, and I think that's one of the exciting things is, and I don't want to give the vendor away because y'all are going to hear that later. I think the type of technology that we've selected is something that we'll be able to support a long time. I'd hate to put a date on it, but I surely think that 20, 25 years, and normally what happens is you outgrow it because of population. So and process changes, but I think from a technology perspective that we're set with our people to be able to support something and make the changes for at least the next 20 or 25 years.
Thank you, sir. And just one other question about the data itself. You said, is all the data that is currently in the applications that are currently being used, is all that data going to be migrated over to the new system? And the second part of the question is the new application cloud-based? And if so, can you just give us a little bit of information on the network security that would be applicable to that new system?
Yes, sir. So your first question about the data, we're in the process right now of going over, we've been in it for a while, going over the retention rules for data. I think one of the problems is I don't think we'll get rid of any data. I think sometimes right now, just about all of our data is live, which means if you need it, you can get it in an instant. The more data you have, it's kind of like a file drawer. If a file drawer is full, it's harder to find something. And it's the same thing with data. Our plan is to look at the retention rules. We actually, as part of our steering committee this week, this is something that Mr. Clark and I are going to discuss with the steering committee, is we'll move that to a different media where it's not running all day long. So if you need something from 1960, it may take us 48 hours to get it to you, but it's not competing for the resources of that the system's running on. I hope that answers your question, sir.
It does. And then the second part was just about the whether it's going to be a cloud-based system, and if you could talk to us a little bit about security.
Yes, and it will be a cloud-based system. Servers are just too expensive. It would cost us 3 times as much to put it on server. Plus, as I said earlier, the disaster recovery and those type of things that you gain from a cloud-based system is so much better. The technology for that will be, we will run through something like Microsoft Azure or AWS, which is Amazon or Google, whatever's offered to us, but it'll run through our data center. So you're not going to be able to go home because we have CGIS data and log into the system. There will still be a firewall in front of it. So we're very concerned about the security of any system, whether it's server-based, whether it's cloud-based. One of the things that we required in our request for offer was, if you're going to put it in a cloud, that cloud needed to be CJIS certified. And CJIS is Criminal Justice Information Systems data. So yes, it will be in the cloud. Yes, it will run through our data center that's protected by firewalls. So we're excited about that. We think that's the best for us.
Thank you, sir. That answers my questions. And again, I'll join others in expressing my appreciation for all of the hard work by you and your team. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Anybody else going once? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Neely.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, I believe that is the end of our business. So having no other business, the meeting of the Texas Board of Criminal Justice Business and Financial Operations Committee is now adjourned. It is 10:36 a.m.
And we're just going to roll right on into the regular session of the Texas Board of Criminal Justice. So I'm going to go to the call to order. The 210th meeting of the Texas Board of Criminal Justice is called to order in accordance with Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code, the Open Meetings Act. During this meeting, the board will be conducting business from the agenda posted in the Texas Register. Members of the board present for this meeting include Vice Chairman Darylyn Perriman, members Larry Miles, Mano de Ayala, Judge Faith Johnson, Judge Molly Francis, Eric Nichols, Ambassador Sichon Siv, and Dr. Rodney Burrow. A quorum of the board is present and the meeting is now declared open. It is 10:37. And let's start with, before we get started, I'd like to invite you to join in pledging allegiance to our United States and Texas flags. Deputy Director Oscar Mendoza will lead us in the pledges. Mr. Mendoza, please proceed.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members, Mr. Collier. If you'll please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Mr. Mendoza. Let us now have the invocation. Pastor Miles, will you open our meeting up with a word of prayer?
Father God, we thank you for your mercy that is new on us this morning. Father, we thank you for your grace that is sufficient for what we face in this life. We ask for wisdom for the task before us today. Father, I pray Psalms 91:10 over each family that is represented here today, that no evil will befall us and no plague will come near our dwelling. Help us today. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor Miles. And one last thank you. I want to thank Melvin Neely and his staff, particularly Christopher Miller. I also wish to thank Jason Clark and his staff, particularly Jeremy Diesel and Stephen Soffel, for putting together this Zoom meeting. This is the very first Zoom meeting for this board, and it's quite possibly the very first Zoom meeting for any Texas major agency board. So I want to thank all of the people who have had a hand into pulling off this meeting. Whenever you're doing something new, as Mr. Neely pointed out, there's always resistance to change. There's always going to be glitches. I'm sure there'll be a glitch or two as we go through the meeting, but I want to thank all of you for all of your hard work over the many days so that we could have a Zoom video meeting. Thank you. And now moving into our basic language with respect to any meeting, with respect to electronic devices, as a courtesy to speakers and guests in the meeting, please turn electronic devices to the silent or vibrate mode. Thank you. Also, acknowledgement of officials. I know this is a virtual meeting and our first one, and many are watching, but I would like to take a moment and say thank you to any public officials and/or staff representatives with us today. Thank you for joining and for your support. Let us begin. Opening remarks. The Texas Board of Criminal Justice is committed to providing an opportunity for public presentations on posted agenda topics as provided in Board Rule 151.4. Persons interested in speaking at today's meeting were required to complete and submit the registration form provided in the posting of today's meeting by 3 p.m. on June 25th, 2020. For today's meeting, no speaker registration forms were received by board staff prior to the required deadline. Therefore, no public presentations will be heard on posted agency topics and agenda topics today. So moving into the agenda, we're going to begin with recognitions. I would like to first start by introducing and welcoming our newest board member appointed by Governor Greg Abbott, Dr. Rodney Burrow. Thank you so much for being here with us, Dr. Burrow, even if it is virtual. Thank you, Dr. Burrow. And I want to give you some background for Dr. Burrow because I think it's very impressive background. And also, from what we can tell, it's been several decades since we've had a physician on the board, a gap that I think desperately needed to be filled, particularly during these times. I'm very grateful for Dr. Burrow agreeing to join us on the board. So let me give you some background for him. Dr. Burrow was appointed to the board in May 2020, so he's just been on the board for a month. Dr. Burrow is the Director of Medical Affairs and Associate Director of Primary Care for Titus Regional Medical Center of Mount Pleasant. He is also a practicing board-certified family physician at the Family Care Center in Mount Pleasant and a registered pharmacist. Previously, Governor Abbott appointed him as chair of the Correctional Managed Healthcare Committee. He is a member of the American Academy of Family Physicians, American Board of Family Medicine, Association of American Indian Physicians, American Academy of Hospice and Palliative Medicine, Christian Medical Association, and the Texas Medical Association. He volunteers for the Pittsburgh Independent School District in various roles and is the team doctor for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Ordained through In His Image, he is a veteran of multiple international medical mission trips. He received a Bachelor of Science in Pharmacy from Northeast Louisiana University in Monroe, Louisiana, and a Doctor of Medicine at the University of Minnesota Twin Cities in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Welcome, Dr. Burrow. Thank you so much, and a warm welcome I offer to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now the Texas Board of Criminal Justice recognizes TDCJ employees who have dedicated 25, 30, 35, and 40 years of service to the state of Texas. These individuals represent the strong commitment of this agency's staff system-wide. I, along with my fellow board members and Executive Director Brian Collier, express our deepest gratitude for their continued service. During the months of March, April, May, and June 2020, 259 employees attained 25 years of service, 51 employees attained 30 years of service, 50 employees attained 35 years of service, 9 employees attained 40 years of service, and almost unbelievably, 1 employee attained 50 years of service. I don't believe I was even able to speak properly when that employee first joined TDCJ. Today, I would like to individually recognize the employees that have attained 40 and 50 years for their dedication and service. And I am sorry I cannot be with you physically so that I could shake your hand and express my gratitude in person. But I hope what we're about to do here will be a poor substitute, but will still express how grateful we are for your unbelievable term of service. I'll start off with the 9 employees who have 40 years of service. First, Miss Jeanette Boyd. Miss Boyd is a loyal and dedicated employee who has devoted 40 years of service to the state of Texas. Officer Boyd began her career in 1980 at the Rusk State Hospital with MHMR, where she served as a psychiatric aide as well as overseeing the hospital's adolescent housing unit during her 13-year tenure. In 1992, Officer Boyd began her career with the Texas Department of Criminal Justice at the Mark W. Michael unit, where she spent 3 years. In 1995, she transferred to the Jerry H. Hodge unit, then transferred to the Skyview unit, where she served until her retirement, December 31st, 2011. November 4th, 2013, Officer Boyd returned to employment with TDCJ and was assigned to the Hodge unit before transferring to the Skyview unit, where she is currently assigned. Next is Guadalupe Cantu. Began his career with the Texas Department of Criminal Justice in December 1979 as correctional officer at the Jester 2 unit, now the Vance unit. In October 1982, he promoted to laundry captain, where he remained until his retirement in January 2004. In March 2004, he returned to employment as a correctional officer at the Vance unit, where he is currently employed today. Next, Donald Cook began his career with the Texas Department of Criminal Justice as a correctional officer in August 1979 at the Ramsey 2 unit, now the Stringfellow unit. In 1982, he transferred to the Mountain View unit, where he was promoted to Sergeant of Correctional Officers in 1990. He remained at the Mountain View unit as a sergeant until his retirement in June 2002. In May of 2003, he returned to employment as a correctional officer at the Crane unit. In December 2007, he then transferred to the Halbert unit, where he is still currently employed. Next, OIG investigator August Will Craze graduated from Sam Houston State University in 1980 with a Bachelor of Science in Law Enforcement. Will began his career in June of 1980 with the Department of Public Safety as a trooper and was promoted to a sergeant of narcotics and then to a lieutenant of criminal intelligence. Will retired in 2007 after 27 years and 6 months with the Department of Public Safety. Will continued his law enforcement career with OIG and worked with Information System Department and then transferred to the Investigations Division and is assigned to work in Austin, where Will conducts criminal investigations, assists in providing protection for the Texas Board of Criminal Justice meetings, surveillance, and many other duties. Will does everything with minimal direction and with the utmost professionalism. His experience and knowledge are beyond measure. Next, David Fransall began his career with the Texas Department of Criminal Justice as a correctional officer on April 14, 1980 at the Ellis unit. In 1985, he was promoted to Sergeant of Correctional Officers. He remained assigned to the Ellis unit throughout his tenure and retired May 31st, 2009. On August 31st, 2009, he returned to employment at the Ellis unit as a part-time correctional officer. Next, Thurman Lane has served 40 years with the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. Beginning in 1978, Mr. Lane worked as a correctional officer on multiple units, including Eastham, Huntsville, Walls, Jester 2, and Jester 3. He proudly wore that uniform until June of 2000, when he promoted to become an industrial specialist, one in the furniture division for Texas Correctional Industries. Mr. Lane spent 8 years with TCI, most notably his position as a modular furniture installer before retiring with 30 years. After less than a year, he returned to the manufacturing, agribusiness, and logistics division within the TDCJ. Mr. Lane spent his first 3.5 years in the textile mill at the Walls unit before returning to the furniture division installation crew. He has served the furniture division in a proud yet humble fashion. Mr. Lane has been a solid example to all his peers through his dedication to his job duties, co-workers, and to the agency. Mr. Lane has been a blessing to each supervisor he has served under. Mr. Lane's role within the installation office has sent him on the road for multiple days and even weeks at a time, and it has asked him to be on call, and he was ready within 3 minutes of his last call out. That is the dedication that makes Mr. Lane an asset to the agency and a jewel of an employee. Next, Nelson McCoy began his career with the Texas Department of Criminal Justice as a correctional officer in December 1979 at the Darrington Unit. He transferred to Hospital Galveston in August 1980. In 1983, he was promoted to Sergeant of Correctional Officers and served in that position until his retirement in November 2008. In March 2009, he returned to employment as a correctional officer and continued his career at the Carroll Young Medical Facility. He then transferred to Hospital Galveston in early 2020, where he continues his career today. Next, Diane Tisno started her career with the University of Texas Medical Branch in January 1979. Then in December 1984, transitioned to a correctional officer with the Texas Department of Criminal Justice at the Carroll Young Medical Facility. She transferred to Hospital Galveston in January 2002. On March 31st, 2016, Officer Tisno retired from Hospital Galveston. She returned to employment as a correctional officer at Hospital Galveston in March 2017. Next, Belton Woodson began his career with the Texas Department of Criminal Justice as a correctional officer at the Eastham unit in May 1980. He then transferred to the commissary warehouse as a correctional truck driver in 1981. He then promoted to a purchaser for the commissary operation in 1991. After having received several promotions throughout his tenure, Mr. Woodson is currently the Huntsville Commissary Warehouse Supervisor. And that wraps up our TDCJ employees who have served 40 years of service. I now come to a very special employee who started back when I would not only not be able to read, but you couldn't even understand what I was saying, which hopefully is a little better today. We'll see. Lastly, I would like to introduce Terry Wunderlich. Mr. Wunderlich has served 50 years with the state of Texas. He began his career as a correctional officer with the Texas Department of Criminal Justice on June 3rd, 1969 at the Byrd Unit. If you think about it, he just missed the Summer of Love in 1968. In November 1970, he promoted to Education and Recreation Supervisor at the Wynn Unit. He then promoted to Educational Consultant in Classification and Records in May 1973. In August 1980, he went on to promote to Administrative Technician 1. He promoted again in September 1989 to Program Administrator 1 in Executive Services. He remained in this position until his retirement in November 2001. On December 9th, 2002, Mr. Wunderlich returned to employment with the agency as a Program Administrator 1 in the CID office. Then in May 2003, he transferred to the Huntsville unit as a Correctional Officer 5, where he is currently employed. Thank you, all of you, for your perseverance, integrity, courage, and commitment to the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. I would like to add that the names of these employees will be submitted for inclusion in the official minutes of this board meeting. The Texas Board of Criminal Justice congratulates each of these employees and thanks you for your unwavering loyalty and dedication to the citizens of Texas. As a symbol of our appreciation, each of you will receive a board certificate along with a personal letter of gratitude. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, this is Eric Nichols. Can we be unmuted so that we can offer these valuable employees a round of applause, a virtual round of applause?
Yes,
Certainly.
that's what I was
Hey,
doing.
just go ahead and unmute. There you go. Thank you. All right, and do we have any more recognitions? We do not. Okay, then let us move on to consent items. Today's proposed consent items include an excused absence for Pastor Larry Miles from the February 25th meeting due to personal business. Are there any amendments, objections, or abstentions to the proposed consent items? Hearing none, the consent items posted for this meeting's agenda will stand approved. The next item on the agenda is the election of officers. In accordance with Board Rule 151.3, the Texas Board of Criminal Justice shall elect a vice chairman and secretary each odd-numbered year. Whereas the power to elect an officer includes the power to fill a vacancy in that office, this election will fill the vacancy in the office of Secretary of the Texas Board of Criminal Justice. Does a member of the board have a nomination for secretary?
Mr. Chairman, it is my honor to move that the Texas Board of Criminal Justice approve the nomination of Larry Miles as Secretary of the Texas Board of Criminal Justice.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Oh, okay. Who seconded?
Faith Johnson.
Okay, Judge Johnson. Sorry, I can't see everybody with the Zoom meeting. Okay, members have been nominated for board officers. Do I have a motion? So I actually need a motion for this as well.
Well,
Oh, he did both. Okay. I have a motion. Is there a second?
I didn't hear the motion for, did he have a motion for the vice chairman? I didn't hear that.
Well, I think Mono actually did a motion for both the nomination of the secretary, and then we had the members have been nominated for board officers, and so they wound up being combined.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have a motion and a second for that already.
We do. So a motion has been made. It has been seconded by Judge Johnson. All those in favor say yes.
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 Opposed? The motion passes. Congratulations, Pastor Miles, as the new secretary. The next item on the agenda will be a report from the TDCJ Executive Director. Mr. Collier, if you are ready, please proceed.
Thank you, Chairman, and good morning, everyone. I'm going to talk about two topics. One, I'm going to talk about the topic we've all been talking about, which is COVID-19. And then I also want to make some comments about the new 5% budget reductions that the agency is working through. At the time of our February board meeting, we were all watching the spread of COVID-19, as many of you remember. At that time, it was mostly going through Europe and a few other foreign locations, with only a very small number of cases in the United States. The first COVID-19 related death occurred on February 29th, and things really began to change in our world very shortly thereafter. That seems like a very, very long time ago today. We began in late February in TDCJ discussing our plans to deal with the pandemic and taking steps to clean and disinfect our facilities above and beyond our normal levels, a practice that continues today. We inventoried our protective gear, began purchases for additional gear, developed plans for isolating and restricting offenders, and our healthcare division and university partners finalized their plans to address the pandemic at all levels. On March the 19th, we had our first positive COVID-19 employee who actually was a contract employee at the Jester One facility in Sugar Land. And on March the 24th, we had our first offender positive at the Lynchner State Jail in Harris County. We activated our command center on March the 16th and focused our full attention and effort on managing the pandemic to the best of our ability. During late March and throughout the month of April, we saw the virus spread to over 38 facilities with over 1,200 positive cases by the end of April. During the past 2 months, we saw our daily symptomatic positive cases range from an average of 48 positives a day during the time window from April 16th through May 15th to 14 cases per day between May 15th and June 15th of 2020. We created strike teams in early May and began mass testing facilities based on risk factors. Since we started mass testing, we've tested just under 130,000 individuals, being 102,000 offenders and over 26,000 staff. And those strike teams are at work as we speak, continuing to do follow-up testing on some of our facilities. We've actually tested more than any system in the country. This large-scale testing has helped us to further attack the virus spread by identifying those individuals who are asymptomatic and separating those from those who are negative. This week, we began conducting follow-up tests on units that had recent symptomatic positives to further identify any asymptomatic cases that may exist. This process will continue for the next several months as we deal with the virus. We've learned different strategies for combating the virus and have made many modifications to our protocols based on the Center for Disease Control and the Correctional Managed Healthcare Committee policy revisions and policy updates to our agency. The battle has been hard, it has been painful, but it has also shown us the resiliency of this agency and how, regardless of the threat, the challenge, or the risk, our employees consistently go above and beyond the call of duty to keep Texas safe. Unfortunately, COVID-19 has taken many lives during this event. We've had an unprecedented number of offender deaths during this time. Many of the offenders who fell to COVID-19 were from our elderly population, many of whom had other chronic medical conditions, making them even more vulnerable during a pandemic. We continue to have their families in our thoughts and prayers. COVID-19 has also attacked our staff and has taken the lives of 8 of our staff members. Kevin Wilcher, a correctional officer assigned to the Estelle unit. Jonathan Goodman, a correctional officer assigned to the Bill Clements unit. Akbar Shabazz, a chaplain assigned to the Wynn unit. Coy Kaufman Jr., a correctional officer at the Telford unit. James Coleman, a correctional officer at the Middleton unit. Maria Menendez, a correctional officer at the Wynn unit. Jesse Bolton, a correctional officer at the Eastham unit. Thomas Ogenbrier, a correctional officer at the Hutchins State Jail. Each of these employees lost their battle with COVID-19. However, they will never be forgotten for their bravery and commitment to public safety and for the ultimate sacrifice they all paid. We pray for their families and coworkers who still mourn each of those losses, and we will honor them later this year in our fallen officer service. As we move as an agency into what will become a new normal, we're taking very small steps to begin the intake of offenders into our system, doing so in a manner that does not cause the spread of COVID-19. Our agency is also moving offenders that had not yet started programs into those programs. The mass testing that we have conducted in the system has provided us with the information to help make those decisions safely. I would like to publicly commend the employees of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. It has been most remarkable to see the thousands of men and women of this agency bravely face an enemy that they can't see. Each day, our staff perform their duties in an outstanding fashion, many times while wearing layers of protective gear. From strike team members to correctional officers to clerical staff and others who pitched in to just keep our day-to-day operations going during this pandemic, they are all truly heroes. Our leadership team has performed flawlessly, and the lines that separate divisions have disappeared. Division directors and staff have worked across division lines to ensure that we meet the mission of the agency. In all of my career, this has been the biggest challenge we've ever faced. For me personally, it has also been a great privilege to be part of a team that has done so well with such a difficult issue. I will forever be indebted to the employees and leadership team for all the sacrifices they have made during this pandemic to keep the agency on track during this pandemic, to keep our mission to provide public safety. Chairman, I'd like to thank you for your ongoing support of our leadership team during this event. I also want to thank Mr. Nichols, Ms. Perryman, Pastor Miles for your support to our team on our regular conference calls. I would also like to thank all of our board members for all of your support. Many of you have reached out and that support has been greatly appreciated. And please know that all our employees have been comforted by that support that you have provided. Moving forward, we know we'll be dealing with COVID-19 for the foreseeable future. Much of what we do will look and feel different. Regardless, I am confident that this agency will continue to weather the storm and will succeed as an agency in the end and meet our mission. Next, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to talk a little bit about the 5% budget reduction. In late May, TDCJ, along with other state agencies and state universities, received instruction from state leadership offices that we were to submit a plan to identify savings of general revenue by 5% for the 2020-2021 biennium. Our agency did receive several exemptions, such as correctional security operations and correctional managed healthcare, as well as behavioral health programs. The items within our budget that were not exempted provide that a 5% reduction would total $122.9 million. As you're aware, we provided our plan to reduce our funding by 5% to leadership offices on June 15th, 2020. We have had significant discussions with leadership offices to provide detail on the impact of these reductions. We did provide options in our plan to give leadership choices based on the potential impact of these reductions. I will notify you once we receive further instruction on our plan. Additionally, we'll soon receive instructions for the legislative appropriations request for the 2022-2023 biennium. It is anticipated that these instructions will further require reductions be submitted during the upcoming biennium. We will continue to work closely with leadership offices as we prepare for the upcoming legislative session, and we'll work as creatively as possible to reduce the negative impacts of reductions to our agency. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That concludes my remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Collier. The next item on the agenda is the chairman's report. And my remarks this morning will focus on the men and women of TDCJ who tragically lost their lives since we last met in February. As Mr. Collier noted in his report, we have lost 8 TDCJ employees due to the COVID-19 virus. We have also lost an additional 3 employees as a result of a series of severe storms that swept through the state in the spring. So I will be honoring all 11 of those employees today. I am reminded of something President Calvin Coolidge said long ago: "The nation which forgets its defenders will itself be forgotten." I am here to tell you we have not and will not forget the incredible sacrifice of the men and women who work for this agency. St. Paul, writing to the Romans in chapter 8, verse 18, tells us, "For I reckon that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory which shall be revealed to us." In other words, in our suffering, there is glory, because we know that suffering produces perseverance, character, and character, hope. I have hope because the individuals we honor today did not die in vain. Their lives mattered. I'm going to start with Correctional Officer Kelvin Wilcher, who was a dedicated, loyal, and dependable employee of the agency who didn't mind setting you straight or speaking his mind in order to make sure that his coworkers were safe while doing their jobs. Wilcher was professional in everything that he did. He had a command presence whenever he spoke that quickly got your attention. His impact on the personnel at the Estelle unit led to many of them considering him a father figure as well as a mentor. He upheld the agency's core values to the fullest, and his dedication will not be forgotten. Officer Wilshire was the first employee to lose the battle against the coronavirus on April 7th. Correctional Officer Jonathan Goodman was known as one of the good guys by his co-workers at the Clements unit, as well as by the offenders who are incarcerated there. He could always be counted on to do the right thing, regardless of the obstacles he faced in his line of work. Goodman was a veteran employee with more than 10 years with the agency. His attendance record was exemplary, and he was cross-trained to work almost anywhere on the unit. He had a contagious laugh, which helped see him and others through the good times and the bad times. He was an avid Dallas Cowboys fan, me too, and was also a big fan of the Caped Crusader Batman, as you might be able to tell from his picture. Throughout the halls, his co-workers can be overheard telling their favorite stories about him and can be seen checking on his wife, Kimberly, who also works at the Clements unit. Officer Goodman died from the coronavirus on April 21st. Taylor Hulbert was the kind of employee that every manager or supervisor hopes to have working for them someday. A contagious smile and a positive attitude that could motivate or encourage anyone he came in contact with were just two of his greatest qualities. Taylor worked in the manufacturing, agribusiness, and logistics division and was assigned to the WIN unit. No matter what the situation or the occasion was, he always had a story for it. He could brighten up the staff and push them to be better than they were the day before with tales of his adventures. But his favorite topic or of discussion was his girlfriend, Brooke Ivy. Any talk of her would light him up like a Christmas tree. Indeed, in this picture, Brooke Ivy was passionate about her work with the agency, and it showed in how she cared about the needs of the customers she interacted with in her job as a contract specialist in the contracts and procurement department. An extremely bright person, Brooke loved coming to work because of the people she worked with, and they in turn enjoyed being around her. She excelled at customer service and was able to handle any assignment she was given. Her caring nature was infectious, and it was evident both on and off the job. Taylor and Brooke were sweethearts and had begun making a life together when a tornado struck their residence in Onalaska on April 22nd. Next, Chaplain Akbar Shabazz began his work in the agency over 4 decades ago when he volunteered to help implement Islam into the prison system. He was the regional area Muslim chaplain. Affectionately known as Lynn by his brothers and sisters, Chaplain Shabazz was a dedicated employee of the agency who worked diligently to help and encourage others no matter where they were in their life's journey. One of his co-workers said that Chaplain Shabazz's insight was invaluable, while his knowledge and experience unsurpassed. A mentor to many, Chaplain Shabazz was well known for his passion for his ministry. He would travel anywhere within the state to serve the needs of the Islamic community inside TDCJ. He was a man of courage, integrity, and high morals. As another coworker said, the life he lived spoke for itself. Chaplain Akbar Shabazz died from the coronavirus on April 23rd. Next, Correctional Officer Coy Kaufman never met a stranger while working at the Telford unit in New Boston. He was always willing to share his wealth of knowledge about the agency from his 10 years of experience. Kaufman had officers from all walks of life flocking to him to learn from his experiences. He never hesitated to talk enthusiastically with his coworkers about what he had learned on the job over the years. Kaufman was a family man, so during the last 2 years of his assignment at Telford, he worked part-time for weekend visitation in order to spend more time with them. But he took this assignment seriously and was passionate about his role in completing the agency's mission. His absence is felt deeply at the Telford unit. Officer Kaufman died from the coronavirus on April 27th. Correctional Officer Jorge Martinez was the kind of coworker you wanted on your side when things got tough. His fellow officers at the Estelle unit have used such adjectives as relentless, tireless, devoted, and dependable to describe him. Martinez taught so many the knowledge of how to run a prison correctly and efficiently. He knew the challenges that this difficult job had and would just look it square in the face and say, "Bring it." There are many stories about Martinez at the Estelle unit that his co-workers now cherish and will tell to keep his memory alive. Officer Martinez died when a tree fell on his home during high winds on April 29th. Correctional Officer James Coleman will forever be known as Jimmy by his co-workers at the Middleton unit. A 22-year veteran of the agency, his radiant smile and candid humor were uplifting to anyone who knew him. Officer Coleman was always willing to help his co-workers by either working overtime because of a staffing shortage or lending a hand to someone who was moving into a new residence. Despite health issues in his later years, he exhibited fortitude, courage, commitment, and perseverance to get the job done without complaining. Officer Coleman died from the coronavirus on April 29th. For over a decade, Correctional Officer Jesse Bolton sought additional responsibilities and volunteer opportunities as a dedicated employee of the agency. Early in his career, he earned the nickname Speedy because of his ability to think and act quickly in any situation. Officer Bolton was compassionate about his work when talking with his supervisors, co-workers, and support staff. He wanted you to know that he could be counted on in any situation, both on the job and off the job. He genuinely cared about people, and it showed in everything that he did. When not at work at the Eastham unit, Speedy worked on his farm and collected memorabilia from the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. Officer Bolton died from the coronavirus on May 9th. Correctional Officer Maria Mendez was the first person you made contact with when you walked into the WIN unit through the front gate. Her strong but friendly presence was known to staff and visitors alike. Officer Mendez was the person who had the task of searching all supervisors, co-workers, and visitors. Your title didn't matter to her. If you had an item in your possession that was not permitted inside the unit, she quickly and politely told you that you were not getting any further unless you took the item back to your car. Her co-workers at the WIN unit considered her a mother, a sister, and a best friend because she created a unique working relationship with everyone she worked with. Officer Mendez died from the coronavirus on May 9th. Joyous, polite, and humble are just a few of the adjectives used to describe Correctional Officer Thomas Ogonberry, who was assigned to the Hutchins State Jail. He enjoyed working with the other staff members at the facility and greeted everyone with a smile and a kind word that would brighten your day. Those that knew him best described him as generous and lovable. He was not only a great coworker, but also a true friend. Ogonbiri took his relationship with the Lord seriously. A 10-year employee with the agency, his last assignment was in the Food Services Department at the Hutchins State Jail. He touched the hearts of everyone he worked with, and they will always remember him with fondness. Officer Ogonbiri, age 54, died from the coronavirus on Thursday, June 11th, 2020. It's normal to feel some sadness as we reflect back on those who passed away, but they deserve more than our sorrow, because from now on, their hands are now your hands, and the way you live your life now reflects on how they lived their lives then. They deserve our pride in the lives they led, our hope for the future, and our continued dedication to their work of making the state of Texas safer. May God watch over and protect every one of us. May He bless you all, and may He continue to bless the great state of Texas. And let's just have a moment of silence for these employees who gave the greatest sacrifice for us and the state of Texas in the United States of America. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is a presentation of the Prison Elimination Act, PREA. Lynn Sharp will be presenting. Thank you for joining us today. You may proceed.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the board, Mr. Collier. My name is Lynn Sharp, and I've been the PREA Ombudsman for the last 5 years with the TDCJ. I'd like to conduct a presentation for you to give you a basic overview of what the PREA Ombudsman Office does and some of the highlights that our agency has done over the last several years. The PREA Ombudsman Office is managed under the Texas Government Code, 501.171-178. In 2007, the 80th legislature established the appointment of the ombudsperson to coordinate the efforts of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice to eliminate sexual assaults in our correctional facilities. There are several governing policies, which is the Board Policy 02.09, which is the Prison Rape Elimination Act Ombudsman Policy Statement. This is recommended by the PREA Ombudsman is recommended by the Texas Board of Criminal Justice Committee and is appointed by the Texas Board of Criminal Justice. The PREA Ombudsman reports directly and only to the TBCJ chairman and reports all pertinent information directly to the TDCJ or TBCJ chairman, The PREA Ombudsman must have sufficient time and authority to oversee the TDCJ's policies that relate to the elimination of sexual assault and sexual harassment in our prison facilities, as well as to coordinate and implement the PREA standards in those facilities as well. The PREA Ombudsman oversees the reporting of offender sexual abuse and sexual harassment to the TDCJ and serves as an independent office to receive and immediately forward reports of offender sexual abuse and sexual harassment to TDCJ officials. And we also allow the offender who makes a report to remain anonymous upon request. Executive Directive 02.10, Prison Rape Elimination Act Complaints and Inquiries, provides the guidelines to TDCJ officials for reporting those complaints and inquiries from the elected officials, the public, and offenders that pertain to offender allegations of sexual abuse, sexual harassment, as well as other TDCJ initiatives regarding the PREA standards through the PREA Ombudsman's Office. The PREA Ombudsman has several responsibilities, and one is to monitor TDCJ PREA policy. What we do is we review all policies within the agency to ensure that if there's any impact on the PREA standards, and we make the necessary recommendations in order to enhance those policies for compliance with PREA standards. We provide oversight of staff and offender education and training to ensure the topics in that training are consistent with the requirements of the PREA standard. We also make recommendation to TDCJ executive management concerning the need for changes in the correctional facilities and in policy for compliance with those standards. Our office processes complaints and inquiries from both elected officials in the public and offenders that are regarding allegations or initiatives related to the PREA standards to ensure impartial resolution of those complaints and inquiries. We provide oversight of the administrative investigations related to sexual abuse and sexual harassment, and we ensure a thorough, quality, and objective investigation. We collect statistics regarding sexual abuse and sexual harassment from each correctional facility for preparation of our reporting requirements. And of course, any issues as far as problematic or systematic issues that we have with the agency, we report that directly to the TBCJ chairman. The authority of the PREA ombudsman is to perform independent administrative investigations, collect evidence, and interview employees and offenders. And with that, we have the right to obtain full and unrestricted access to correctional facilities, employees, records, information, and data, and a multitude of other different types of data, electronic, and materials needed in order to conduct our investigation. We make recommendations, of course, for improving the effectiveness of the sexual abuse prevention, detection, and response processes. Preventative activities includes engaging in review of federal and state legislation, review of best practices put out by the PREA Resource Center, examining the TDCJ policies and procedures, training curriculum, and then we also attend meetings that are involving the Prison Rape Elimination Act. The PREA Ombudsman Office is structured with a manager 3, which is the PREA Ombudsman. We have a program supervisor 4. She manages the inquiry section of our office. So she is managing the program specialist, which we have 2 program specialists, and we have an administrative assistant and a clerk. We receive sometimes over 2,000 inquiries a year, so they're constantly reviewing and processing these inquiries. We recently had an organizational structure change to improve the effectiveness in monitoring and oversight of the PREA operations on the facilities. Historically, the Correctional Institutions Division Director was a designated PREA coordinator for the TDCJ, but due to expanding PREA compliance initiatives into community confinement facilities, in 2019, the PREA Ombudsman was designated as the TDCJ PREA coordinator. We have 6 regional PREA compliance managers that are officed in the field. We have one officed in Huntsville, Palestine, Rocheron, Beeville, Plainview, and Gatesville. And these PREA compliance managers, they provide oversight and monitoring of the PREA operations within their respective regions to ensure PREA compliance. They conduct site visits, unit inspections, observations, and interviews with staff and offenders. They also review files and logs, investigative reports on a daily basis, and provide technical support and on-site assistance in preparation for Department of Justice PREA audits. When an inspection results in a finding of non-compliance, the regional managers also provide corrective action training to the staff on the facility to help them enhance their practices and processes. Administrative PREA investigations. Part of the PREA Ombudsman is to know all the allegations that are filtered through the agency are reported by staff, reported by offenders, and reported by the general public. So allegations of sexual abuse are reported on TDCJ facilities are all reported to the Emergency Action Center, which is a centralized location to report all serious and unusual incidents. Those initial reports are available to the PREA Ombudsman Office, the Office of Inspector General, and the Safe Prisons PREA Management Office. The EAC tracks all these reports and enters the information in a database for statistical purposes. And the PREA ombudsman reviews all of these allegations and investigations that are reported through the EAC on a daily basis. So we have access to be able to go into the data system and be able to look at every one of the allegations. The administrative PREA investigations, once it's reported, the warden, the unit warden, ensures completion of an administrative investigation and review of that incident and forwards the information to the Emergency Action Center. The PREA ombudsman reviews the investigation to ensure all PREA compliance measures have been set. Now, criminal investigations, any criminal investigation is going to be conducted by the Office of the Inspector General. All of the sexual abuse allegations received through the PREA Ombudsman Office or through TDCJ officials is always referred to the Office of Inspector General. The Office of Inspector General will determine if the elements of the Texas Penal Code or elements of a crime have been committed and will open a criminal case if it's warranted. The PREA Ombudsman and TDCJ officials will remain informed of the case status on a monthly basis, resulting in a criminal case on a sexual abuse incident. So regardless of whether OIG opens a criminal case or not, the administrative investigation will continue until completion. Statistics. One of the responsibilities of the PREA Ombudsman is to collect statistics related to sexual abuse and sexual harassment. The PREA Ombudsman, we coordinate the collection of sexual abuse and sexual harassment data from the TDCJ and also from the Office of Inspector General. And this data is used to respond to state and federal surveys, public requests, and reports that are required under the Texas Government Code. Also, the statistics are presented to the PREA auditors whenever a PREA audit is being conducted on the facility. Some of the reports and publications that are out there our Safe Prisons PREA Annual Report. The Safe Prisons Annual Report is publicly available on the TDCJ website within the PREA Ombudsman page. Currently, the 2019 Annual Report is very near its completion and should be posted within the next couple of months. The Bureau of Justice Statistics Survey of Sexual Victimization is an annual report that is provided to the Department of Justice. And also, the PREA Ombudsman completes an activity report to the TBCJ so that they are aware of the activities of the PREA Ombudsman according to our policies. The Department of Justice has been involved since 2014 with conducting PREA audits on each one of our facilities. Facilities are required to be audited at least once during a 3-year audit cycle. So upon beginning in August of 2014, we have completed so far 1 full cycle of the PREA audit cycle, and then we also are into our 2nd cycle. So at least 1/3 of our facility types have to be audited each year, including private facilities. The PREA standards require, the PREA auditors utilize the same standardized audit tool that is respective of that facility type to complete their facility audits. And those audit tools are available publicly on the PREA Resource Center website. Next slide. So the state of the PREA audit since we started, the first 3-year cycle, TDCJ was found PREA compliant on all TDCJ and privately contracted facilities. The second 3-year cycle is near completion. However, due to the COVID pandemic, we had to suspend or postpone some of those audits beginning in the middle of March. So, what will happen now is we'll reschedule those audits and then begin with our cycle as soon as it is safe for the auditors to go back into the facilities and conduct audits. Final PREA audit reports, they're available on the TDCJ website at the link provided on the slide. They're publicly available, and then if you have a loved one on a prison facility, then public can look at these to determine the facility that report is on. So one of the highlights that we have in our agency at this point is our Safe Prisons PREA Automated Network System, and this for short is SPANS. This is a web-based solution that automates offender protection investigations, PREA risk assessments and data reports. The Safe Prisons Automated Network System is the application used to document and track incident workflows for the Safe Prisons Program Management Office. The system is utilized by unit level staff, PREA users, regional PREA managers, Safe Prisons PREA leadership, and any division that has oversight over the PREA operations, investigations, or PREA activities. And this is to monitor offender on offender and staff on offender incidents. The system may be used to generate reports and statistics and contain offender, employee, third-party profiles, scanned evidence, which can be linked to an incident. The system is split into two sections, one where the PREA investigations are generated and the other covering offender PREA assessments functions. The PREA Ombudsman is a key stakeholder of the SPANS program. The PREA Ombudsman staff utilize the system daily as an added measure of oversight by reviewing PREA workflows to assess compliance. SPANS generates reports for the collection of statistical data that is used for a variety of reports and publications. Thousands of users were trained prior to the rollout. SPANS was deployed throughout the state beginning in January of 2020. And by April of 2020, SPANS was fully implemented on all facilities. We're very proud of IT and everyone that was involved in the creation and development of the SPANS program. We had an audit at a STEL unit in March, and the auditor, Jennifer Fight, looked through the system, reviewed the system, and highly commented on how well of a job and how wonderful this system was, and by stating the system is one of, if not the best, data collection system this auditor has seen anywhere in the correction systems in the United States. And this comment only solidified how proud we are of the TDCJ staff who had a hand in developing this wonderful system. And for that, this ends my presentation, and I'm open to any questions the board may have.
Well, first, I just want to say thank you very much for a very thorough and illuminating presentation. So very well done. Very well done. Does anyone have any questions before we move on?
I'd just like to say thank you to Lynn. I really have appreciated getting to know you, and your dedication to this very important role did not go unnoticed. I understand that you're retiring. We're going to miss you a whole lot. Thank you so much for all your hard work.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. And thank you to the board. Thank you for everybody who's had the faith in me to do this job. Yes, I am retiring at the end of July with a heavy heart, of course. I've had a lot of passion in this job and in PREA Ombudsman functions. And even way before that, when I was in Safe Prisons and working as a correctional supervisor on the facilities. I'm going to dearly miss TDCJ, and hopefully in my next chapter of my life, I'm not going to be done with PREA. So you may see me in the future. So thank you.
Well, we'll have to bring you back to a future board meeting that's not virtual, so we can honor you properly in your service. So thank you. I join Ms. Perriman in congratulations and also profound thanks. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, let us move on to the next item on the agenda is the internal audit status report for fiscal years 2019-2020. Internal Audit Division Director Chris Cerrito will be presenting. Thank you for joining us today. You may proceed.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members, Mr. Collier. I have a very brief report this morning. As you were notified via letter on May the 27th, the Internal Audit Office has canceled 6 projects on the annual audit plan. The appropriate authorities have been notified, and those projects can be found on page 2 and page 4 of the status report in your package. Once this meeting is concluded, the modified annual audit plan will be posted to the agency website. And that actually concludes my report, and I will pause for any questions.
Thank you for the report and updates, Mr. Cerrito. Are there any questions or comments from the board?
Mr. Chairman, I'd also like to thank Mr. Cerrito and his staff for the efforts that they've made during the COVID pandemic to recognize and encourage the staff in our units. It has meant the world to them.
And I would second Ms. Perryman's remarks. What she's referring to is that Mr. Cerrito organized his staff to actually go out in front of a number of units as the employees were driving in. They'd hold up signs of encouragement and make it clear that the COs were appreciated as they kept coming into these units day in and day out. And everyone was very appreciative and thankful of the audit division's work on their behalf of being there as present and affirmatively supporting the TDCJ staff. So thank you very much for that, Mr. Cerrito. Is there anything else? If not, thank you, and let's move on. Our next item that we have is discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding purchases and contracts over $1 million. Members of the board, I don't ordinarily vote unless it is to break a tie. However, my firm represents several entities included in the purchases and contracts over $1 million. Therefore, the vice chairman will proceed with the next agenda item, and I will not be taking any action today on the purchases and contracts over $1 million. So, Ms. Perryman, I'm handing you the virtual gavel, as it were.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next agenda item is a discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding purchases and contracts over $1 million. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Steffa. You may proceed.
Good morning. Good morning, Chairman, board members, Mr. Collier. You can locate the purchases over $1 million behind tab H in your book. The first two items are transportation-related purchases for the fiscal years 20. The first one is diesel buses that are used to transport offenders. Item 2 is tractor trucks for freight transportation. The third item is for fiscal years 2021. It's a blanket purchase order for cabling associated with the installation of a comprehensive video surveillance system at a number of units, and it would be with Sunrise IT Solutions Group. The fourth item is a contract for the Corrections Information Technology System. That was the project that Mr. Neely presented to you during the Business and Finance Committee, and that contract would be awarded to Microsoft Corporation, and this project would extend through fiscal year 23. Item number 5 is a fiscal year 21 renewal of an order for modular panel systems that are manufactured and installed through the Texas Correctional Industries. Item 6 is a fiscal year 21 renewal of a blanket order for John Deere tractor parts used in the repair of agency tractors and implements. Item 7 is a fiscal year 21 renewal with Airmark for food services at the Keegan State Jail. The next 3 items are fiscal year 21 purchases for use in producing meat products for offender consumption at the Neal and Michael units. Item 8 is for isolated soy protein. Item 9 is for beef trim. This purchase is purchased throughout the year utilizing the going market rates. Therefore, we are requesting a 10% variance from the approved amount for this item to accommodate any potential fluctuations in the market. Item number 10 is for pork trim, and we are also requesting a 10% variance for this item as it's purchased utilizing the market rate as well. Item number 11 is a fiscal year 21 purchase of cans and lids that are used in the canning process for vegetables at the Terrell unit. Item 12 is a purchase for fiscal year 21 of ammonium nitrate fertilizer, and it is used for field and vegetable crop production. Item number 13 is a fiscal year 21 contract for items sold in the unit commissaries. The categories of items are provided there for your information. And for this item, we are requesting a 10% variance from the approved amount to provide flexibility and to adjust to actual sales. Item number 14 is multiple fiscal year 21 contracts for bulk fuel. It's delivered to agency fueling locations across the state and then utilized for agency vehicles and equipment. A 10% variance is requested here as well to be able to accommodate any potential changes in the price throughout the year. Item number 15 are multiple contracts for fiscal year 21 for food items. The individual categories there are provided for your information. And a 10% variance is also requested for this item to account for product availability and any substitutions that may be necessary throughout the year. Item number 16 is a fiscal year 21 contract for cellular equipment and services with AT&T. And the next two items are fiscal year 21 purchases used at the agency feed mills to produce feed for our agency livestock. Item number 17 is soybean meal. Item number 18 is the cattle feed premixes. And the next 5 items are fiscal year 21 contracts for raw materials used within our manufacturing facilities. Item number 19 is reflective sheeting used for license plates. Item 20 is aluminum coils that are also used in the manufacture of the license plates. Item number 21 is reflective sheeting, and it is used in the production of highway signs. And item number 22 is aluminum sign blanks that are used also in the production of highway signs. Item number 23 is cloth that is used to make sheets and pillowcases and clothing for offender use. Item number 24 is an interagency contract with the University of Texas Medical Branch for the continuation of our baby and mother bonding initiative for fiscal year 21. Item number 25 is the fiscal year 21-22 interagency contract with the Health and Human Services Commission. It's for pre-release opioid medication assisted treatment services. These funds are provided by the Health and Human Services to reimburse TDCJ for providing these services for pre-release offenders, and then Health and Human Services will provide treatment services to the offenders post-release. And that concludes the purchases, and we'll pause for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Steffa. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Thank you. Do I have a motion?
Madam Vice Chair, I move that the Texas Board of Criminal Justice approve the purchasing and contracts over $1 million as presented.
Thank you, Pastor Miles. Have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
And who is that? I'm sorry, I couldn't see.
Faith Johnson.
Thank you, Judge Johnson. A motion's been made. It's been seconded by Judge Johnson. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Return the gavel to you, Mr. O'Daniel.
Thank you very much, Ms. Perryman. The next agenda item is the discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding proposed revision to BP 02.43 Equal Employment Opportunity. Kristen Moorman, General Counsel, will be presenting. Welcome, Kristen. Please proceed.
Welcome, board members. And before you, as the chairman has announced, are revisions to board policy 02.43. This policy is receiving only an update to the signature authority. And that is the only revision in this policy. It is before you for consideration of this revision.
Are there any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, thank you. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Texas Board of Criminal Justice approve the revisions to board policy BP 02.43 Equal Employment Opportunity as presented.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
A motion has been made. It has been seconded by Ms. Perryman. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. The next agenda item is the discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding proposed revisions to Personnel Directive PD-12 Equal Employment Opportunity. Ms. Foreman, please continue.
Yes, Mr. Chair and board members, this directive is before you today with revisions that add definitions for employee and other individual. The definition of retaliation is also being revised, and throughout the directive, language was added to reflect the inclusion of the definition of other individuals in reference to equal employment opportunities. There were also grammatical and formatting updates that were made.
Thank you, Ms. Foreman. Are there any questions? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Texas Board of Criminal Justice approve the revisions to Personal Directive PD 12, Equal Employment Opportunity as presented.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second,
Who was
Mono.
that seconded?
Mono did.
Mono, okay, it's hard. I can't see everybody. A motion has been made. It has been seconded by Mr. De Ayala. All those who are in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. The next item on the agenda is the discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding adoption to Board Rule Title 37 Administrative Code 163.33 Community Supervision Staff. Ms. Foreman, please continue.
Mr. Chair and board members, the amendments to this rule are before you today for your consideration. The amendments, if adopted today, clarify and codify the current procedure regarding the duration of Community Supervision Officer or CSO and residential CSO certification. The timing is being changed from, oops, excuse me, that's the next rule. Once under this rule, the amendments specify that once the CJAD or Community Justice Assistance Division has certified a CSO or residential CSO, those individuals will maintain their certification and eligibility for certification, provided they are in compliance with the training hour requirements and are employed by a community supervision and corrections department. No comments were received regarding the proposed amendments.
Thank you, Ms. Foreman. Are there any questions? Hearing none. Oh, was there one? No. Okay. Hearing none, do I have a motion?
I move that the Texas Board of Criminal Justice adopt Title 37, Texas Administrative Code, Section 163.35, Supervision as published in the Texas Register, and that the chairman sign the order to this effect.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Hold on a second. Let me jump in real quick. I think we jumped ahead to 3.5 and we were talking about 3.3.
Yes, that's right. We are talking about 3.3. Oh, so I need a motion from you, Mr. De Ayala. Well, if you
Okay.
remember, you're the one who got the motion mixed up with the officers, so that's only
Right.
fair for you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Don't worry,
Yeah,
Judge Francis, we're
yeah,
gonna get
do-
to you on the next.
Do as I say, not as I do, right?
Sorry
Mr.
about that, Mono.
That's all good. Mr. Chairman, I move that the Texas Board of Criminal Justice adopt Title 37, Texas Administrative Code, Section 163.33, Community Supervision Staff, as published in the Texas Register, and that the chairman sign the order to this effect.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Y'all
Two
did that
seconds
on
from
purpose.
here.
We want to get
All right,
that second.
I've
we have
got to
Ambassador
mute myself.
Siv in a second. A motion has been made, has been seconded by Ambassador Siv. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. The next item on the agenda is the discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding adoption to Board Rule Title 37 Administrative Code 163.35 Supervision. Ms. Foreman, please continue.
Yes, Mr. Chair and board members, this rule clarifies that a level of supervision for each offender based on the offender's criminogenic needs will be determined within 90 days as opposed to 2 months. So this is a change in the timing to extend the timing from 2 months to 90 days. The determination will be made within 90 days And also a written individualized case supervision or treatment plan will be provided within 90 days as opposed to 2 months. The proposed amendments codify the current procedure and make other minor word changes, clarifications, and organizational changes. No comments were received regarding the amendments.
Thank you, Ms. Foreman. Are there any questions? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
You want me to re-urge it?
Yes, I do, Judge Francis.
Okay, I move that I again move that the Texas Board of Criminal Justice adopt Title 37, Texas Administrative Code, Section 16335, Supervision, as published in the Texas Register, and that the chairman sign an order to this effect.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Oh, okay. A motion has been made, has been seconded by Mr. De Ayala. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. The next agenda item is discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding a proposed land transaction involving a request for a gas pipeline easement at the Clements Unit, Brazoria County, Brazoria, Texas. Bobby Lumpkin will be presenting. Thank you for joining us today, Mr. Lumpkin.
Thank you, Chairman O'Daniel, Mr. Collier, members. As was discussed during the Business and Financial Operations Committee, we have 4 items on the agenda. The first one being the request for a gas pipeline easement at the Clemens Unit of Brazoria County. Praxair is requesting an easement which includes an area of approximately 8.19 acres of land, being 11,903.36 feet long by 30 feet wide for one hydrogen gas pipeline. This includes temporary workspace totaling 14.74 acres for use during pipeline construction and installation. They have agreed to pay $551,383 for this easement with a 10-year term. The easement does include language requiring indemnification as the grantee's responsibility, the most favored nation clause, and additional insurance in the amount of at least $2 million. We recommend that the Texas Board of Criminal Justice approve the request for the gas pipeline easement to Praxair.
Thank you, Mr. Lumpkin. Members of the board, as stated earlier, I don't ordinarily vote unless it is to break a tie. However, my firm represents Praxair Inc., which is included in the agenda item. I will not be taking action today and will be abstaining on the request for a gas pipeline easement at the Clements Unit, Brazoria County, Brazoria, Texas. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I move, Faith Johnson, I move that the Texas Board of Criminal Justice approve the request for gas pipeline easement at the Clements Unit in Brazoria County, Brazoria, Texas, as presented.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
A motion has been made. It has been seconded by Judge Francis. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. The next agenda item is discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding a proposed land transaction request for electrical transmission line easement at the Clements Unit, Brazoria County, Brazoria, Texas. Mr. Lumpkin, please continue.
Yes, sir. CenterPoint Energy Houston Electric is requesting an easement which includes an area of approximately 35.18 acres of land, being 15,132.36 feet long by a variable width for a new electrical transmission line. CenterPoint Energy has agreed to pay $193,851 for this easement with a 30-year term. As with the previous easement presentation, the language is included for indemnification, most favored nation clause, and additional insurance in the amount of at least $2 million. We recommend that the Texas Board of Criminal Justice approve the request for the electrical transmission easement to CenterPoint Energy Houston Electric.
Members of the board, my firm represents CenterPoint Energy Houston Electric, LLC. I will not be taking action today and will be abstaining on the request for electrical transmission line easement at the Clements Unit, Brazoria County, Brazoria, Texas. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none.
Mr. Chairman, I do have a question.
Sure.
Can you, Mr. Lumpkin, can you explain or elaborate a little bit the most favored nation clause?
Yes, sir. The most favored nation clause, Ambassador, basically is that if another landowner other than TDCJ negotiates a higher rate than what we negotiated with the corporation, then it is in the corporation's responsibility to come back to the agency and to pay us that amount difference that's greater than what we negotiated.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Are there any other questions? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I would move for the approval of the proposal as sponsored and as presented by Mr. Lumpkin.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Oh, sorry.
Wait a minute, who was the first second? Was that Judge Francis?
Yes, it was.
Okay. A motion has been made. It has been seconded by Judge Francis. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. The next agenda item is discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding a proposed land transaction request for renewal of pipeline easement at the Stiles Unit in Jefferson County, Beaumont, Texas. Mr. Lumpkin, please continue.
Yes, sir. Zydeco Pipeline Company is requesting the renewal of a pipeline easement, which includes an area of approximately 3.91 acres of land, being 5,679.96 feet long by 30 feet wide. Zydeco Pipeline Company has agreed to pay $172,120 for this easement renewal with a 10-year term. This includes indemnification as the grantee's responsibility, the most favored nation clause, and insurance in the amount of at least $2 million. We recommend that the Texas Board of Criminal Justice approve the renewal request for the pipeline easement to Zydeco Pipeline Company.
Members of the board, my firm represents Zydeco Pipeline Company, LLC, which is included in the agenda item. I will not be taking action today and will be abstaining on the request for renewal of pipeline easement at the Stiles Unit in Jefferson County, Beaumont, Texas. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Texas Board of Criminal Justice approve the request for pipeline easement at the Stiles Unit in Jefferson County, Beaumont, Texas, as presented.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
A motion has been made. It has been seconded by Mr. Nichols. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. The next agenda item is discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding a proposed land transaction request for renewal transfer of beneficial use of land at the Houston Regional Parole Office, Harris County, Houston, Texas. Mr. Lumpkin, please continue.
The City of Houston is requesting the renewal of said lease at the Houston Regional Parole Office, which includes an area of 431 square feet of land that serves as access to the City of Houston's communication tower. The City of Houston has agreed to pay an annual rent of $741.60 with an escalation of 3% each 5-year period throughout a lease term of 20 years. This includes language requiring indemnification, most favored nation clause, and additional insurance. We recommend that the Texas Board of Criminal Justice approve the request for an access and surface lease to the City of Houston.
Members of the board, my firm represents the City of Houston, which is included in the agenda item. I will not be taking action today on the request for renewal, transfer, or beneficial use of land at the Houston Regional Parole Office, Harris County, Houston, Texas, and will be abstaining. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Texas Board of Criminal Justice approve the request for renewal transfer of beneficial use of land at the Houston Regional Parole Office, Harris County, Houston, Texas, as presented.
A motion has been made. Is there a second?
I second. Faith Johnson, second.
A motion has been made, has been seconded by Judge Johnson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes, and please let the record show I abstained from voting for all of the requests. Thank you very much, Mr. Lumpkin. And with that, there being no further business, the 210th meeting of the Texas Board of Criminal Justice is now adjourned. It is 12:04. And we will move immediately in, wait. Oh, we gotta leave this meeting and then join the new meeting with the Wyndham School District. So let's do that and join back up.